Hi, I'm Ja'Cory, and this is not a drill. How about that episode 2? Did you get that catchy tune out of your head yet?
And what about these videos? Have they been helpful for you? Moving forward, my videos are going to mix the new information you need for the next episode with reminders of things from previous episodes that you'll need to keep in mind moving forward. Episode 2 had a lot to unravel, adding to other things that you'll need for Episode 3 and beyond, so this video is longer than the others this season. So let's get right into it. Number 1. The Great Cleansing. In Episode 2, we hear references to the Great Cleansing from multiple characters. Filavandrel lived through it, watching thousands of his fellow elves die at the hands of humans. Yennefer says her real father, who was half-elf, died in the Great Cleansing. Yes, she means her real father, not this asshole pig farmer who sold her for 4 marks. Also, Jaskier's remarks in the cave confirm what Istrid says later in the episode about humans essentially rewriting history to make the humans look heroic after that horrific event. Most humans don't seem to know what really happened, and we as the audience haven't heard all the details either. The audience does know now that the elves were the first to use magic on the continent long before the humans came, and we know from Istrid that they built Aretuza. We also know from Istrid that the ruins at Aretuza contain the bones of thousands of elves from the Great Cleansing, and that the island tower above those ruins, Tor Lara, is the most powerful place of magic on the continent. So, perhaps the elves losing Aretuza is the ultimate symbol of their loss of the continent itself to humans, who, according to Geralt, learned to use magic better than elves. Number 2. Yennefers Education so far. On her first night as a student at Aretuza, Yennefer attempts suicide by cutting her wrists with pieces of broken mirror. She continues to bear the scars on her wrists from that incident. After that, we saw Yennefer struggle with her studies. Desperate to impress her peers and teacher, she even lies. Tissaia reveals that Yennefer's deepest fear is that even if she was beautiful, nobody would love her. Interestingly, Tissaia reveals later that, like herself, Yennefer is consumed by her emotions. That one lesson becomes a big part of Yennefer making an academic turnaround. Between that and Istrid's tutoring, Yennefer proves that she can turn chaos into magic, even if her emotions cause her to lack control. Number 3. Conduits of Chaos. In Episode 2, Filavandrel suggests that humans have synthetically enhanced chaos to increase their magical power, and he blames that action for the humans having stripped the continent away from the elves. Geralt, though, says that chaos is as it's always been, and humans just learn to use it better. However, later in the episode we see evidence of Filavandrel's concerns. Tissaia told her girls that all of them were conduits of chaos, but that not all of them could apply the balance and control needed to create magic from that chaos. Later, she turns some of them into eels, telling Yennefer that it removes their control and leaves their power. Yennefer makes the connection that in that form they remain conduits of chaos, but they can be added to the power of Aretuza. This in turn strengthens the magic that the mages can produce from Aretuza. It's like turning up the gas to a fire or the current to a light source. The more fuel you put in, the more you get out. Plus, don't forget this memorable quote from Tissaia.
Sometimes a flower is just a flower, and the best thing it can do for us is to die.
Number 4. The Brotherhood of Sorcerers. Tissaia says that only the Brotherhood of Sorcerers is permitted in Tor Lara, that most powerful place on the continent. The Brotherhood of Sorcerers is a political organization of mages. The term mage is applied to the magic users who successfully completed their studies at either Aretuza or Ban Ard. We already know Aretuza. Banard is another academy where Istrid studies. We hear Banard referenced by Streguy when Istrid reports to him that Yennefer is part elf. Oh yes, and that is the same Streguy we met in Blaviken in Episode 1. Lars Mikkelsen, y'all! When Tissaia speaks to her girls about the Ascension, she's referencing a time when students from Aretuza and Banard go through a formal ceremony and are assigned to serve one of the royal courts throughout the continent. You'll hear more about the Brotherhood, the Ascension, and the royal court assignments during Episode 3. Number 5. The Elder Blood. I'm covering this topic a bit early because of Istrid. In Episode 2, Istrid uses a flower, Fainwood, to help him wield other forms of magic that they don't teach at the academies, like making portals. He says that the flower only grows where elder blood was spilled, and you can see how impressed he was at Yennefer's natural ability with portals, which she attributes to her father being half-elf. Yennefer certainly shows a connection to the older magic, which may be because of her elven blood. However, elder blood is something more specific. Elder blood refers to a gene rather than an entire bloodline. It started with an elven sorceress named Lara Doran, and the gene is sometimes called Lara's gene. Lara fell in love with a human mage, and their descendants carried a gene associated with incredibly powerful magic beyond the average human sorcerer. Human researchers tracked that gene through generations, but not every descendant showed signs of magic, and the gene was lost entirely in some lines with just a couple of generations. So, a person with elder blood is incredibly rare on the continent, and the powers of the gene itself are much coveted. In other words, if you can find a magic user with elder blood and have them on your side, you're pretty powerful indeed. Can you guess which character we've met so far in the show just happens to have this special gene? Number 6. Jaskier's Witcher Propaganda. If you paid close attention to the words of Jaskier's catchy tune, Toss a Coin to Your Witcher, you know that his intent to improve Geralt's reputation in the eyes of humans includes altering the details of his stories quite a bit.
That's not how it happened. Where's your newfound respect?
Respect doesn't make history.
In Episode 3, when we first see Geralt, the person he's with actually references the song she's heard from the bard about him. Keep an eye out for Jaskier's continued impact and how it affects Geralt over time. Number 7. The Bite of the Lioness. When Ciri stays at a Cintra refugee camp during Episode 2, she learns that common folk and merchant class alike didn't much care for Queen Calanthe's rule. They speak of losing family members who fought and died in her wars. We haven't heard about that side of Calanthe, or much about Cintra's history, but you'll get more hints about that in Episode 3 and beyond. Number 8. Filavandrel's Uprising. In the Cintra refugee camp, the young man Ciri meets with the elf ears around his neck speaks of revenge for the people who died in Filavandrel's uprising. Wait, Filavandrel? Yes, that's the same elf that expressed his angst to Geralt in the mountain cave. The advice and encouragement that Geralt gave to Filavandrel, reinforced by Teruviel's passionate words, could have been the spark that ultimately led to that uprising referenced in Ciri's story. While we don't hear more about Filavandrel and his followers in Episode 3, the underlying current of elves rising again carries throughout the season. Number 9. The Streguy. In Episode 3, Geralt confronts a Streguy during a powerful action horror sequence. A Streguy is a human female who has been transformed into a monster by a curse. She comes out to hunt during the full moon. Killing a Streguy may not be necessary if the curse can be broken, but breaking the curse means preventing the Streguy from getting back into its crypt before sunrise. It's far easier to kill the Streguy outright, even if it means the cursed female dies. Remember Geralt's conflict from Episode 1, picking the lesser of two evils? That definitely becomes a recurring theme for Geralt, as evidenced in this story. The episode opens with another, less talented Witcher attempting to address the Streguy problem unsuccessfully. Number 10. King Foltest of Tameria. Geralt's story in Episode 3 involves helping Foltest, the king of Tameria, with his pest problem. Like any good hunter, Geralt investigates to learn more about this hunt before diving in. In that investigation, Geralt learns some heavy truths about Foltest, his sister Ada, and this courtier named Lord Ostrit. The details of this story are driven by dialogue, so listening to the dialogue is critical to understanding what's going on throughout Geralt's story. I don't want to spoil any more for you, though, so if you have any lingering questions after the episode that I don't address in my next video, leave those in the comments here. Number 11. Triss Merigold. Episode 3 introduces you to a sorceress named Triss Merigold. She helps Geralt with the Streguy situation, which she tells us has been going on for 6 years. She also explains why the Brotherhood of Sorcerers assigned her to serve King Foltest in Tameria. Note that if you do read the story about Foltest and the Streguy in the books, there will be someone else in the role that Triss serves in the show's adaptation. No doubt this was the screenwriters wanting you to be familiar with Triss before more significant events later in the season. I won't spoil any more about Triss here. However, I will say that you may hear some gamers expressing disappointment at how Triss is portrayed in the show. Keep in mind that the show is leaning more on the books for their story, and the show's Triss is very much the book's Triss so far. Number 12. An Uprising in Nilfgaard. The mining guild members that Geralt speaks to about their pest problem in Episode 3 reference a usurper in Nilfgaard who led the people to rise up and overthrow a king who is notorious for his excessive sexual indulgences while letting the people in his kingdom starve. Remember that this is many years before Ciri's story, in which Nilfgaard has recently conquered Sintra. You'll also hear references to this same notorious Nilfgaardian king in Yennefer's story. Both the Brotherhood and Yennefer speak of King Fergus's overt sexual advances. The King Fergus tie-in between storylines is one of many clues about how the timelines fit together. Number 13. Sodden. You'll hear Sodden mentioned here and there during conversations. There will be a lot more about Sodden later in the season. But for now, just know that it's an area in the central part of the continent surrounded by several kingdoms. People seem to refer to it like the center of a compass from which to reference directions to other things. Number 14. Aden Vengerberg and Dol Blathanna. In Episode 2, Filavandrel speaks of being forced out of Dol Blathanna, a fertile valley where the elves thrived before the Great Cleansing. That's where they were stealing grain from humans in Episode 2, while they lived in exile in the surrounding mountains. Dol Blathanna, or the Valley of Flowers, is within the human kingdom of Aden. Yennefer was born in the then thriving capital city of Aden, Vengerberg. In Episode 3, Yennefer expresses a deep desire to return to Aden and serve as a mage to the court there, in service to King Virferil. In Yennefer's storyline, we also hear that the political climate between Sintra and Aden during that time impacts the Brotherhood of Sorcerers' decision about the placement of mages in their court. Number 15. Enchantments on Ascension. In Episode 3, we learn that those who are ascending from Aretuza and Banard are given an opportunity to receive enchantments that will change them to have their ideal physical bodies. After all, if you're going to live an extended life and serve a royal court, you might as well make the most of it. The enchantments are given out from this guy, in a ring of fire, who approaches his work like a tailor preparing the perfect dress for a special occasion. For Yennefer, discovering her ideal form pairs with her taking control of her path forward. Also, keep in mind what we learned in Episode 2, that Yennefer's greatest fear is that no matter how beautiful she is, no one will love her. Timeline hints. The only clue we get about the relative time between stories in Episode 2 was a reference to the same event in both Geralt's and Yennefer's timelines, the Great Cleansing. Filavandrel lived through that event, and Yennefer mentions that her father, a half-elf, died in that event. This seems to put Yennefer's timeline closer to Geralt's than Ciri's, but that's all we know right now. Fortunately, Episode 3 will drop several hints about the time differences across the Triad's storylines. See if you can pick up on those during the episode, and I'll review them all during my Episode 4 video in case you missed them. Here's another fun fact.
In advance, I'd pay you 100 ducats.
150.
I've no doubt you'll come through.
When Geralt haggles for the price of a job in Episode 2, this is no doubt a nod to the games, where the counter-offer is an option Geralt has when speaking to mission givers.
Anything else I say for Episode 3 is going to be spoilers, so I encourage you to watch the episode soon, then post a comment here and let me know if my video was helpful for you. Also, let me know if there's more I should have covered here before you watched. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell to get a notice for when I post my next video preparing you for Episode 4 of Banquets, Bastards, and Burials.